Cam Caminiti is one of those prospects where the story is not built on hype, but on projection, development, and how organizations invest in arms they truly believe in. Drafted in the first round of the 2024 MLB draft by the Atlanta Braves, Caminiti entered professional baseball as one of the youngest and most intriguing left-handed pitching prospects in his class. The Braves didn't just draft him for velocity, they drafted him for athleticism, arm action, repeatability, and long-term upside. From the beginning, Caminiti stood out as a high school arm with advanced traits. His fastball velocity reached the upper 90s, but more importantly, it showed life through the zone and the ability to miss bats. That velocity alone doesn't make a pitcher special, but when combined with body control, clean mechanics, and feel for secondary pitches, it creates a profile that teams are willing to develop patiently. This is exactly the type of pitcher the Braves have historically invested in arms that may not be rushed, but are built to last. As Caminiti transitioned into professional baseball, the focus immediately shifted from raw stuff to refinement. Early professional innings showed the expected learning curve of a teenage pitcher facing older competition, but the underlying metrics told a much more important story. Strikeout ability was present early, walk rates began to stabilize, and his overall command showed steady improvement as the season progressed. These are not surface-level stats, they are indicators of a pitcher learning how to sequence, how to attack hitters, and how to pitch rather than just throw. From a development standpoint, Caminiti's arsenal continues to evolve. His fastball remains the foundation, but his secondary pitches, particularly his slider and changeup, are becoming more consistent and usable in game situations. This matters because front-end starters are not built on one pitch. They are built on the ability to disrupt timing, change eye levels, and command multiple offerings. The Braves' development system is known for emphasizing this exact process, and Caminiti fits perfectly into that model. Now, when we shift from on-field development to market behavior, the picture becomes even more interesting. Looking at recent sales of Cam Caminiti's Bowman Draft and Bowman Chrome First autograph cards, we see a market that is actively trying to establish his value. Entry-level PSA 10 autos have traded in the lower ranges, while higher-end parallels, including numbered refractors, sapphires, and gold variations, have reached significantly higher price points. Some premium PSA 10 versions have approached and even exceeded the mid-hundreds, showing that collectors are already assigning value to scarcity and long-term projection. This range in pricing tells us something important. The market is not yet settled, and that's exactly where opportunity exists. Early in a prospect's career, pricing volatility reflects uncertainty, not weakness. Collectors and investors are still answering the same question. How much upside does this arm truly have, and how patient are we willing to be? For disciplined collectors, this phase is critical because it's where informed decisions outperform emotional buying. From an investment perspective, Cam Caminiti represents a classic long-term profile. He is not a quick flip, and he is not a finished product. He is a developmental arm in a system that understands how to build pitchers methodically. There are risks. As with any young pitcher, health, command consistency, and workload management will always be factors. But the combination of draft capital, organizational support, and early indicators creates a foundation that serious investors pay attention to. Now, this is where our analysis goes one step further, and where context becomes extremely important. At FlipZonix, we don't rely solely on surface stats or isolated performances. We also use internal projection models and simulators that allow us to test possible development paths based on historical data, comparable player profiles, age curves, and organizational tendencies. This does not mean prediction, and it does not mean certainty. It means scenario analysis. When we ran Cam Caminiti through our simulator, the goal was not to declare outcomes, but to understand ranges. What happens if command improves at a league average rate? What if secondary pitches take longer to stabilize? What if health and workload are managed conservatively, as Atlanta typically does with young arms? These are the types of questions the simulator helps us explore. Based on the inputs, age, draft position, velocity band, strikeout indicators, walk trends, and organizational development patterns. Caminiti's projection clustered into a very specific category. The simulator consistently returned profiles aligned with mid-rotation to high-end rotation potential, assuming normal progression and no major setbacks. That does not mean ace. It means usable, valuable innings at the major league level, with upside if refinement accelerates. One of the most interesting outputs was not peak performance, but timeline compression versus patience. The simulator suggests that Caminiti's value curve is not front-loaded. In other words, this is not a prospect whose perceived value spikes immediately. Instead, value builds gradually as command stabilizes, pitch usage improves, and innings accumulate. This aligns closely with what we've seen historically from Braves' developed arms. It's also important to clearly state what the simulator does not do. It does not account for injuries, it does not guarantee velocity gains, and it does not predict awards or accolades. It is a tool, nothing more. But when used responsibly, it provides a structured way to remove emotion from evaluation and replace it with probability ranges. From a collector and investor standpoint, this matters because it reinforces patience. If your decision-making is based on immediate results, Cam Caminiti may feel slow. But if your approach is built around developmental arcs and probability, then the simulator confirms what the eye test and the metrics already suggest. This is a long-term profile, not a short-term trade. This is exactly why we emphasize education. Anyone can react to a stat line or a headline. Very few take the time to understand how development, data, and market behavior intersect over multiple seasons. The simulator is not here to tell us what will happen. It's here to help us understand what could happen and how wide or narrow that range truly is. When you combine this projection framework with real card sales, grading outcomes, and market behavior, you start to see a clearer picture. Prices fluctuate, sentiment changes, but underlying probability moves much more slowly. That's where disciplined strategy lives. So when we look at Cam Caminiti through this lens, metrics, development system, market pricing, and simulated outcomes, the takeaway is not certainty. The takeaway is structure. And structure is what allows informed decisions over time. This is how we evaluate prospects. This is how we remove noise. And this is how we build conviction without hype. This is not about chasing the next name. It's about understanding the process before the outcome is obvious. If this analysis brought you value, make sure to subscribe to the channel, activate the notification bell, and follow us on all our social media platforms for more in-depth content like this. Here at FlipZonix, we focus on education, data, and long-term thinking, not hype. We break down players, metrics, development paths, and market behavior so you can make more informed decisions over time. Thank you for being part of this community, and we'll see you in the next analysis.